SCS Software just teased another map expansion, and it took me some time to break down what it could actually mean. But don't worry, I think I'm starting to see where the next map expansion is heading. And if I'm right, this could be a very unique DLC. You'll see exactly why in a moment. First, let's watch the clip, and then we'll break everything down. So, after watching it a few times, there are several clues that stand out. The clip clearly points toward the next map expansion for American Truck Simulator. At first glance, it might not seem obvious. But when you start looking at the details, things become much more interesting. The video shows large farming areas with cornfields stretching across the landscape. We also see a truck using a racing-themed paint job. And perhaps the biggest clue of all is the background audio. You can clearly hear race cars. Now let's start with the racing clues. The race car sounds are not there by accident. SCS is known for hiding hints and teasers. They often leave small details for the community to discover. The racing paint job and race car sounds immediately make me think of one thing: a major racing destination, not just a small local track. A world-famous racetrack. And when you think about iconic racing locations in the United States, one place stands above the rest: the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Known as the racing capital of the world, it is one of the most famous racetracks on the planet. It hosts the legendary Indianapolis 500 and can accommodate more than 250,000 spectators. That's not just a racetrack, it's a landmark. It's one of the most recognizable sporting venues in America, and it would be the perfect landmark for SCS to showcase in a future ATS map expansion. Now, some people might point to Texas. Texas also has major racing facilities, but I don't think that's the answer. Texas is already in ATS. If SCS is teasing a completely new map expansion, it makes more sense for the clue to point toward a state that isn't in the game yet. And that's where Indiana starts making a lot of sense. Then, there's another clue. The most recently announced ATS map expansion is Illinois. And what state sits directly next to Illinois? Indiana. This follows the expansion pattern we've seen from SCS for years. They usually continue building outward from existing states rather than jumping across the map. As ATS continues moving eastward, Indiana becomes one of the most logical next steps. And let's not forget the cornfields. That's another important clue. Indiana is famous for its agriculture. Large sections of the state are covered with farmland. Corn production is a huge part of the state's identity. So when you combine the cornfields with the racing references, Indiana starts standing out even more. The teaser description also gives us more hints. SCS talks about iconic roadside landmarks. They mention highways surrounded by lush countryside. They mention urban areas, industrial hubs, and scenic rural roads. When you think about Indiana, all of those descriptions fit surprisingly well. The state has major cities, it has busy manufacturing industries, it has distribution centers, it has agriculture, and it has one of the most famous racing landmarks in the world. Put all those clues together, and the picture starts becoming much clearer. Nothing is officially confirmed yet. This is still speculation. But based on everything we've seen so far, Indiana looks like the strongest candidate. In fact, I would be surprised if it turns out to be anything else. The timing also makes sense. SCS is steadily pushing ATS eastward. Every new state brings the map closer to the eastern side of the United States, and Indiana sits perfectly along that path. What's interesting is that Indiana could also introduce a lot of new industries. We're talking about manufacturing plants, automotive industries, agricultural businesses, warehouses, distribution centers, and freight hubs. All of these industries would create new delivery opportunities and help make the state feel unique. And let's be honest, Indiana may not always be the first state people think about, but from a trucking perspective, it's incredibly important. Several major interstate highways pass through the state. Freight traffic is constantly moving through Indiana. It's one of those states that plays a huge role in the American logistics network. That makes it a perfect fit for ATS. Right now, the next confirmed map expansion is South Dakota. We also know that British Columbia is currently in development. Those are the two major projects we know about today. My expectation is that South Dakota will arrive first. It feels like the most advanced project right now. I wouldn't be surprised if it launches toward the end of this year. British Columbia will likely follow later, possibly sometime next year. And after those expansions, Indiana could very well be next in line. If that happens, the future roadmap becomes extremely interesting. To the north, we could eventually see Minnesota, Wisconsin, and North Dakota. Those states would help fill out the northern part of the map. They would also create more connections between the western and eastern regions of ATS. Then to the south and southeast, states like Kentucky, Tennessee, and Mississippi become very realistic possibilities. Each state would bring different landscapes, different industries, different cities, and completely different delivery routes. That's what makes ATS so exciting right now. The map keeps growing, the road network keeps expanding, and every new DLC adds another piece to the puzzle. A few years ago, driving from coast to coast felt like a distant dream. Today, that dream feels much closer than ever. SCS is slowly building one of the most ambitious truck simulation maps ever created. And they're not slowing down. For now, though, all eyes are on this teaser. The cornfields, the racing paint job, the race car sounds, the location next to Illinois. The clues seem too strong to ignore. When you put everything together, they all point in the same direction. Indiana. Of course, we'll have to wait for SCS software to officially reveal the next map expansion. Until then, this remains a theory. But it's a theory that makes a lot of sense. And if it turns out to be true, ATS players could soon be exploring the racing capital of the world, hauling freight through busy industrial cities, traveling across beautiful countryside, and discovering an entirely new part of America's trucking network. Personally, I think Indiana is the strongest candidate we've seen so far. The clues are there, the location makes sense, the expansion path makes sense, and the timing makes sense. Now we just have to wait and see whether SCS software confirms what many players are already starting to suspect. Could Indiana really be the next American truck simulator map expansion? Right now, all signs seem to point to yes.